All right, welcome to another Small Business Pivots. And today we have another very special guest, not too far down the road from where our headquarters are in Oklahoma City. And you are in for a treat today. But as I always say every week, there's no one that can introduce their name and their business like the business owner. So I always let our guest introduce themselves. I'll let you have the floor.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. Whenever you approached me, it was pretty eye-opening that I have a story to tell. So I'm Kayla Trent, the owner of KatHouse BBQ here in the Oklahoma City metro area. I am a wife and a mom of 5 kids. We're an amazing blended family. And on top of that, running this barbecue business. Believe it or not, I actually came from a background of accounting with a bachelor's and an associate's in accounting, and just left that 9 to 5 job back in last February to do this full time. So it's been a wild ride. You know, in the corporate world, you're told to stay in your lane. You're told to, your voice is stifled. And so I have spent the last year finding my own lane, and it's been a wild ride.
Well, for our listeners, you have an incredible story that caught my attention. I don't know that we knew each other before the story. It just came through my feed. So, but first, I don't know if your full-time job is a mom or the barbecue. I mean, to me, the barbecue would be more fun, but we'll
Right?
get to that here in just a
Yeah.
second after we introduce the show. So we'll be right back. Welcome to Small Business Pivots, a podcast produced for small business owners. I'm your host, Michael Morrison, founder and CEO of Boss, where we make business ownership simplified for success. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. All right, welcome back to Small Business Pivots. As I said, you have 2 full-time jobs. One sounds a little bit more fun than the other. I know we all love our kids, but come on, give me a break. There's one that we have fun with and the other that's more of a responsibility. So let's talk about, you mentioned kind of coming from the corporate world. Let's talk about a little bit of your upbringing, nothing too personal, just because I know for small business owners, we all think, am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes to be a business owner? And what I find with business owners is we all have trials and tribulations growing up, most of us. And for me, myself, I wasn't the book smart kind of person, but I seem to be a good business owner. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing so we can get caught up to date.
So I was the book smart person. I had the straight A's. That's where my dad always, his dream was to be an accountant, but he never did that. And so that's kind of what instilled that into me, was his love for numbers and his love for accounting. And so I really wanted to make him proud. And so, let's go to school for accounting. Never in a million years did I think that I would be where I am now, though. And so I moved here by myself whenever I was 18 years old from Arkansas, and have just kind of built a life for myself, and it's led me here.
It's always interesting how we kind of live that facade, I guess you could say, of grow up, get a degree, do this, but we never really find ourselves. And you mentioned that kind of early.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about those accounting, because we need to be reminded of every job opportunity that we work in or culture that we work in is completely different. So what were the dynamics like? What was the culture like in that atmosphere? Just so others can get a little sense of the accountability and the culture that you came from.
So, in the corporate world, you brought up being a mom of 5 kids and doing the barbecue. Working in a corporate job, if my younger son, if he needed me at school, you can't just take off and go. And to be honest, if I did, I would get the cold shoulder for the rest of the day because I wasn't present. Whenever, in all reality, my main job in life is to raise these little human beings. And so there was that. And then you're always told in a corporate world to know your audience. Obviously, I am fairly outspoken. I'm not, sit in an office, accounting world. I was good at it. I was a senior accountant, but that obviously is not me and my personality. I don't belong boxed into an office. So I was constantly told to stay in my lane, know your audience. You just do what you're supposed to be doing. And especially, in the corporate world, you've got women. That's another thing that I've found is outside of the corporate world, women are so for each other. In the corporate world, you're in competition 24/7. They're always competing with you. Coming out of the corporate world, I told my husband the other day, I said, never did I ever think that I would have such a group of amazing women that supported me. And he said, neither did I. And I was like, why do you say that? And he said, because you didn't like women. And I said, it's because I was surrounded by the wrong women.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's something to be said about female entrepreneurs and the support they give each other and all entrepreneurs. It's a really big force to reckon with. So would you say, or what would you say is the reason for leaving the corporate world? What is kind of like one thing that you've learned has been the best out of everything?
that I get to make my own lane. I get to create myself. I get to create my family and what's best for me and my family. That's what I would say.
So for those wannabe entrepreneurs that haven't quite taken that step, what encouragement would you give them to say, you got to do this if it's meant to be?
So I actually had a friend here in the very recent future or past that she does like the big balloon garlands. And she was like, I want my business to grow, but she was still working her full-time job. So I've become very much like, if you've got this side hobby that is going amazing for you and you want it to grow, just take the leap. It is so scary. Whenever my husband said over a year ago, just quit your job, just go full time in barbecue, just do it. I was like, I was the one that was like, that sounds really scary because I'm very practical. I need to know that I have my safety net. Yeah. But whenever you make that leap, I promise you will make it happen. You will find a way because you know that it is all dependent on you and you will make it happen.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that would be for someone that counts beans. So you're saying for me to go start my business, there's no beans to count there.
Yeah, right? It was scary, but It has been the best decision that we have ever made. And my husband even said yesterday, he said, I love your job. So, yeah.
Well, do you think it's a job? I'm just curious.
No, it's more of an adventure for me. There's been so many different things happen over the last year. And prior to all this happening, I was scared. I was so scared of change. And I have learned to so embrace it. It's still scary, but that's actually been my mantra over the last year was do all the scary things. If it sounds scary, prior to leaving the corporate world, I didn't do the networking things. I didn't get up in front of people and talk. Again, my voice had been stifled. I lost my voice. And so finding my voice over the last year has been pretty amazing. But to go back to, do I think it's a job? Now, every single time that the other day, my son got bumped in the mouth, my 7-year-old son got bumped in the mouth on the playground, and the school called me and said, hey, Gage is having a really hard time. Would you want to come up here and just console him? And on my way there, I got teary-eyed because what I'm doing is enabling me to be able to be there for all 5 of my kids and for my husband. So, no, it's more of an adventure.
That's amazing. A couple of quotes as a business coach I often offer as encouragement is discomfort means we're growing. So you mentioned a couple of things about stepping out there to the uncomfortable zone. And then every day is an exciting adventure with problems to be solved and memories to be made. That's my daily mantra. So just keeping in
Yep.
fact that we're going to have some problems here. So just get used to it,
Mhm.
enjoy the ride. And so how did
Yeah.
you get into, well, let me back up a little bit because you have this really cool neon sign behind you. For those that are listening, you can't
Yes.
see it, but YouTube, you can. Barbecue. KatHouse BBQ. So, how did you get
Yes.
into barbecue? Female entrepreneur in the barbecue world. That's a story in itself.
Right. So it actually began, like I said, over 15 years ago. My ex-husband would kind of dabble in barbecue, and then we started kind of again like a side hustle of barbecue. He had his own 8 to 5 and I had an 8 to 5, and we didn't do it nearly on the scale that I do it now. But I just kind of watched him, and then one day he was out of town, and we got an order for several slabs of ribs, and he called and he said, "Do you think you can take this on?" And I was like, "Well, I think so. I've just watched you do it, but let's, try it out." So a few days later, after the customer had picked them up and eaten them, he called my husband and said, "I don't know what you did to those ribs, but those are the best ribs you've ever made." So
Bet that made him
that,
feel good.
right? So that's just kind of where it started. And then after that, I just kind of started taking on more and more. And so it was always to make a little bit of side money. And then, especially whenever we started going through the divorce, I really stepped into that to try to help support me and my 3 boys at the time. So that's just kind of where it's led up to today.
So, self taught.
Yes, very much self taught. Yes.
What advice would you give to those entrepreneurs that have something in mind, or those wannabe entrepreneurs that have something in mind that they want to take it to the next level? What would you say has helped you through the years get to the point where you are today?
I mean, really, it was just having that hustle. I was working that 8 to 5, but on the weekends, really pursuing that side hustle. And I mean, never did I think I'd be doing this full time, but that hustle every weekend really led to the growth. And I mean, obviously, social media too. You've got to get that out there and build your customer base. And so,
And network and all those other things you mentioned that
yes,
makes you
do all
uncomfortable at
the
first.
uncomfortable.
That's right. Get uncomfortable. So, all right. So, we're going to talk about this year adventure.
Yes.
We're going to talk about it because as a business coach, I work with some businesses 10 that's been in business 10 years. They're still doing things that they should have quit doing on day one. What are some things that you learned when you first started that you wish you would have done different or would have done more, would have done better?
So definitely doing different, something that I've had to learn.
You're listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is produced by my company, Boss. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. Now let's get back to our special guest. As a business coach, I work with some businesses that's been in business 10 years. They're still doing things that they should have quit doing on day one. What are some things that you learned when you first started that you wish you would have done different or would have done more, would have done better?
So definitely doing different, something that I've had to learn is charging your worth. And that's a really hard one because whenever you get into business, especially friends and family come out of the woodwork and they're like, "I'm here. What kind of discount do I get?"
Yeah.
And so that was a really hard one, is not going broke trying to make your friends and family happy. So I think that was one of the biggest things that I've learned, is charging my worth and sticking to it.
Well, we try to be impactful for all listeners. And I will say, as a business coach that has owned several businesses, helped other businesses, your last advocate of your business will be family and friends. You need to go find
And isn't that
someone other than
interesting?
family than friends.
Yes. And it's so interesting. And I've read something, it's because they wish that they were where you are now.
Yeah.
So
And
you have,
that is true. That is
yeah.
true. Darren Hardy, who's kind of a motivational speaker, he uses I think it's the crabs, like when they scoop up the crabs and the crabs try to crawl out and the other crabs pull them back down.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's true. Whether it's intentional or not, it just makes
Mhm.
others feel uncomfortable. And then other reasons could be, they think of you as maybe Uncle Michael or Brother Michael. They don't think of
Mhm.
you as an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
there's lots of reasons there. What are some things that you learned after you started your business that you would offer to help other business owners?
Giving up the tasks that don't bring you joy. It's things that not only you can do, so only I can do the barbecue. I can't have somebody else come in and do barbecue for me. But saying like posting on social media, you can hire somebody to post on social media for you. It wasn't bringing me joy. So things that are not bringing you joy within your business, find somebody else to do that for you so that you can focus on making the money. It's going to cost you a little bit of money to do that, but I promise you, you're going to make that money right back up because you have the time to pour into your business.
Yeah,
So, for instance, I hired a virtual assistant to start posting
good
for
for
me.
you.
Yes. So I can take that off my plate. I don't have to stress about it. She's going to be able to make 5 posts in the time that I would have made one. So,
And she knows what she's doing.
yes.
Just like you
Yes.
know what you're doing in barbecue.
Yes. Yes.
What are your plans for the future of the barbecue business?
So
What
I
does that look like?
actually have news for you since the last
All
time we
right.
talked. I know.
Fantastic. You're hearing
Um,
it here first, folks.
right. Actually, a lot of people don't know this. I mean, they'll know it before this airs, but I actually secured a food trailer last week.
Oh,
So
very cool.
we are moving
Congratulations.
along.
Yeah,
Yes.
congratulations. So you're the
Thank you.
traveling KatHouse BBQ.
I am. I still want to stick, I think, more to catering. That's just where the money is. You and I have talked about that, but I'm not opposed to pulling it out to events, and I look forward to doing that. And it'll be a whole nother thing for this year to look forward to.
Very cool. Well, I want to touch on the story that grabbed my
Mhm.
attention not too long ago of you got caught. We'll just say that. I don't want to give anything
Yep.
away. Just kind of share that story because a lot of business owners they think, "Oh my gosh, if one more thing goes wrong, I'm shutting down, I'm quitting." And you're like, "Heck no. Plow forward. Come on, troops." So, why don't you share your story and kind of the bits and pieces of maybe some things that you had to push yourself through, or maybe that might give some others encouragement of you just got to do it and here's why. And so, I'll let you share the story first.
Yeah, so this last year, we've just been kind of chugging along, and I've been gaining all these new customers, gaining quite a following on Facebook. I mean, considering where I was, and everything was going great. And then comes, November, it got crazy busy, everybody needing their turkeys. And then December, I had probably at least like 15 caterings within a 3-week period. And it was 4 days before Christmas. And the next day, I actually had the biggest catering I've ever done. And I was walking out to my car with a pan of food, and a car pulls up, and a man gets out, and he says, "I'm with the city. You cannot be selling food out of your house."
Wow.
So
How did you feel right then?
I felt all the color drain from my face, and like, what do I say? Like,
You
how
didn't
do
drop
I?
the food, did you?
No,
Okay.
no. It's like, but how do I get out of this? How do I, spin this? And I said, well, not even for friends and family. And he said, well, your Facebook has been turned in also, so we've seen everything. So
Wow.
somebody had intentionally turned me in and turned in the Facebook, and so that completely, obviously, knocked me off my feet. With it being 4 days before Christmas, 5 kids, I still had a couple of Christmas presents to buy, and I'm asking myself, do the kids really need those presents? Do they really need that last present? Because what if I can't have, I'm not going to have this income because somebody was so offended by my success that they wanted to hurt me and my family so badly. So I definitely had my pity party for a good couple weeks. You know, it really, really knocked me off my feet. So I had my pity party. I cried, talked to my husband a lot about it, and like, what am I doing? Like, why am I even doing this if people are going to try to knock me down? And then I realized that it's not people, that it was only one person. I had built all these people. I have this huge circle now that support me. And just because one person is trying to take me down doesn't mean that I need to go down. So that started the search of the food truck. And it's taken, 4 months now to actually find that. But we're finally getting there. But it was really the hard realization that it was just that one person. So we're
Well,
moving along.
that's awesome. As they say, you're doing something right when you got
People
somebody's
are
attention.
watching. Yes. And that's something that I've also realized because I was having a hard time pulling the plug on getting the food truck. And I realize it's because I do have so many people watching now that I'm afraid of that one person or a few people getting to celebrate in my failure. I mean, to me, failure is not an option. I'm going to make it in one way or another. But if, say, the food truck doesn't work out, that somebody gets to relish in my failure. And that was bothering me so much. And I finally had to realize, who cares? At least I'm doing what a lot of people aren't doing. I took that step. I took that leap and I'm doing it. So if they get to see a failure here and there, at least I'm going for it.
Good for you. We have more people approach us that want to start a business than have started a business. And
It's
they're
scary.
always envious of those
Yeah.
that have and then complain in the background,
Hmm.
about their success. It's never about their whatever it is they're stuck in, but it's usually about someone else going to that next level. That's interesting
Yeah.
that you bring that up. So today, what would you say is a life lesson you've learned? Fast forward from the day you started your business to today. What is like the first thing that comes to mind that says, I'm glad I did this because
Oh man.
that's a hard one because you'll go through different seasons in business and that answer can constantly evolve and change. At first, it was the freedom,
Hmm.
which is most people, while you're thinking, I want to share with them that most wannabe entrepreneurs are usually thinking about the money, but after you start the business, it's like, wow, the freedom I have. I don't
Hmm.
have to
Yeah.
ask permission to go see my child in the daytime.
Yes. I think one of the things that I've really recognized here lately is the people that I'm getting to meet and really the places that I'm getting to go that I wouldn't have done. I just did a women's retreat for women entrepreneurs. And just the locations that I'm getting to go cater to that I would have been stuck in my bubble in accounting in my office, just sitting there on a day-to-day basis. But I'm getting to travel and I'm getting to go do these things and meet all these people. And I would have never thought that I would have such a huge circle at this point.
Yeah, that is truly amazing. What would you say as a female entrepreneur is one of your current challenges and then also one of your current successes so that other female entrepreneurs can kind of feel the love?
Well, and obviously in a man's industry of barbecue, it's kind of funny. We'll go do a catering, and my husband calls himself the best free help that I have, and he is. He's amazing free help.
He's probably the chief taste officer
Right?
too, right?
Yes, yes, along with the all the kids. But it's so funny because we'll get to an event and the men especially will walk up to him, man, this is really good. What kind of wood did you use? And he'll be like, it's not me. I didn't do any of this. And they'll literally acknowledge that with like nodding their head, and they'll be like, well, how long did you smoke the brisket for? And he's like, you don't understand. He's like, I literally helped package it, and that's about it. So
Yeah.
it's funny. So going into a man's world, they have a really hard time acknowledging that
Yeah.
I'm this blonde haired girl over here is the one that made this food.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then what was the second question?
So what would be the like a success that moving from day one, it was kind of the freedom you have, you recognized right away that you could go, check on your son. What is something that you've appreciated now being a female entrepreneur that others need to know?
Well, obviously, like I said, the support system from women coming out of the corporate world, it can be really catty.
Mm.
It can not be a pretty scene sometimes. And you go home feeling really down because you're constantly competing with all these other women. And to now have all this whole support system that not only supports me, but I get calls all the time that they are referring me to people and people that I've never even met before. And so it's become the weirdest thing to me. And I don't know if I'll ever get used to getting phone calls from people that I don't know, that I've never met, asking me to cook food for them, all because they've heard about it from somebody else down the line.
Mm.
And it's so amazing and so freeing for it to get to that point.
Well, let's talk about that because coming from the corporate world where you don't know anyone outside of
Mm-hmm.
that box that you mentioned, how did you step out there? What kind of groups are there? What's the best way to network and sell? Because obviously, friends and family, I for most people, I always say don't start with friends and family.
No,
They're not going to pay you what you're worth.
nope.
They're not going to be your advocate. They think of you as the aunt or the brother or the sister, whoever. But how did you step out there? How did you find these groups? And then any kind of tips to give people on how to network best? Because I know if you've never networked or sold, been in sales before, you can take the wrong approach and offend people as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's actually interesting. Whenever I stepped out of accounting to start doing barbecue full time, I still second guessed myself. I thought, while I'm getting barbecue up and running full time, I need another revenue stream. So I started selling roofs with a friend. That was pretty short lived, but he was doing a network group called Gold Star, which is here in the metro. So I started attending that, and I very quickly joined with under barbecue. But that's really, you have to get up every single time and speak for 45 seconds about what you do. And I remember the very first time that I got up, my voice was quivering, like I'm shaking, it's a terrible feeling. And each and every time it got easier and easier. So that was a weekly thing. So that was almost practice every week, getting up, speaking. And then here in the Oklahoma City metro area, we also have an organization called Mix and Mingle, which is where you and I met. But again, you get up in front of a room full of people. You have 30 seconds to introduce who you are, what you do. So it's a very short snippet, but again, can be extremely uncomfortable in the beginning. So, but just keep on practicing that and finding those networking groups. And there's a lot of like after hours networking groups where you can actually, you have more time to mingle and interact with people. It's not so much the elevator pitch right off the bat. So just doing those over and over and over again has gotten me to where I'm at least comfortable enough to come talk to you on this. So I would say that that's what I did. But again, doing the uncomfortable things, because whenever I remember there was one meeting that I was trying to talk myself out of going. I didn't want to go. I felt really uncomfortable. It was like probably the third meeting I'd ever been to. I didn't want to go. And I even called my husband and I was like, well, I didn't effectively talk myself out of going because I'm on my way. And it wasn't 5 minutes of being in this room, I landed a catering gig.
Oh, wow.
So it was making that conscious decision to go do that uncomfortable thing.
That's a
And I got a
reward.
yes. And then from that catering gig, I actually got another one. So, so I actually sometimes I like to sit and be like, man, this catering literally came from this and this and this, and like, track it down the line of like
Yeah.
where that actually started.
That's really cool. I bet there are some people listening to this when you talk about getting up and talking in front of people. They're just shivering in their boots right now, going, I can't even imagine.
It's uncomfortable and it still makes me feel uncomfortable, but some people will get up and they have their very set elevator pitch and you can tell it's rehearsed. And I decided fairly early on that wasn't me. So I just kind of get up and I'm just me and I talk about whatever I'm doing right then. Because if you get too rehearsed, it doesn't sound authentic and it doesn't resonate with people. People completely tune out. I know I do that whenever people get up and are rehearsed. So I just try to be myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't try to be the next Google or, Amazon or anything like that. Just be yourself. People buy from those they know, like, and trust. So anything in this past year that you would say you wish you would have known how to do better, or you would have done better, or are you just going with the flow every day?
I think I'm going with the flow. However, I think time management, whenever you don't have somebody else telling you this, and this need to get done every day, whenever it's up to you for you to make your schedule, it becomes like a whole nother thing. So really time management as an entrepreneur, like making your schedule for yourself and sticking to it every day, not just waking up whenever you want to wake up. You actually treat it as a job, but even though you still have that freedom. So that has been probably one of my hardest things to do is time management, making myself follow that schedule. And I'm getting better at it. So,
Well, I will tell you, having worked with so many business owners, that's probably all of our biggest challenges, the time management and prioritizing what really needs to be done versus what's easy to be done.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, how can people find out more about your business?
So I have a Facebook, I have KatHouse BBQ, and then also Kayla Trent on Facebook. And then I also have an Instagram. You can find it at Kayla Trent or KatHouse BBQ. Working on a website. I'm hoping and that'll be like a 1-year goal, I think, this coming year, but definitely needed to get some other things up and going before focusing on that. So,
well, I will commend you on that because it sounds like you're prioritizing what makes sales. I just had a meeting with a fairly new business owner and they're doing everything but sales. So they're doing these websites and this social, and I'm like, you realize that's like a long-term sell versus if I were to just call somebody, go to a networking event. So you're doing a lot of great things in the right order. So kind of what makes your barbecue a little bit different than everybody else's on the catering side?
So whenever I do cater, catering barbecue isn't like this looks like it's not pretty. I mean, it's a pan of meat, so it is. And so I love to set it up in a different way. A matter of fact, I just started also doing graze boards, also graze tables and charcuterie boxes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, what happened back in December of being turned in has made me think of like, how can I branch out? Because the guy that came by from the city, he was actually very, very nice and very helpful, and I've been able to talk with him since and ask him for a few pointers of how I move forward. So it was basically just the meat. I can't post the meat until I'm licensed in a food truck. So it made me branch out to the graze boards because you can do that. So that also made my mindset change of how I lay out the meat and present it more pretty, more eye-catching, because people eat with their eyes first.
Yeah.
So I don't just set that pan of meat on the table And so it's more of a presentation for me. I also make my own rub. People ask me if I make my own sauce, and I don't. Mainly because I don't think that my meat needs a sauce. So,
There you go. That's
I
like
have
a good steak doesn't, when they ask for, do you need a sauce? I shouldn't need one if it's that
right?
good. Yeah.
So I've really pushed back on making a sauce, and I know I need to cater to my customers and what they want and what they're asking for, but I have a really hard time thinking about people putting sauce on my barbecue.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I am with you on that. So, well, what last bit of information, insights would you give to other entrepreneurs? Something you've learned along the way? It could be a quote, it could be a book, it could be anything about life. Doesn't even have to be about business.
I would say just take that leap. Just do it. It's scary. It's scary. But like I said, if you take that leap, you have no other choice but to push yourself forward. There's no going, you can go back, but what's that going to get you? You're just going to be stuck right in the same spot that you were. So take that leap, move forward, keep taking those steps, and you're not going to regret it. If it does fail, at least you did it. You can say you tried. So if you don't, you're never going to know, and that's a failure in itself.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, you're a blessing to many, and you've shared a bunch of information that's going to impact others. Wish you continued success, and I can't wait to come to your next catering. I'm ready for barbecue now.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one. We'll see you around.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is created and produced by my company, Boss. Our business is growing yours. Boss offers flexible business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. If you need help growing your business, email me at michael@michaeldmorrison.com. We'll see you next time on Small Business Pivots.